In this Intro to Blender course or tutorial, we will go through the basics of Blender from the very start, covering the interface, how to move and interact with objects, to making this scene in the end, which is an isometric room made in Blender 3D. So even if you haven't tried Blender yet, you can make this room hopefully by the end of this tutorial. So for people completely new, you can download Blender from blender.org and it is free. The current latest version is Blender 4.0. You just click on download and it will show you the latest version. Then you can select your operating system, which is either Windows or Mac or Linux, and you can click on here to download the Blender. Then you will just install it normally like any other program. And once you install it, let's hop into Blender to see how it will look like for the first time. So once you install Blender and open it for the first time, it will look something like this. I have not changed anything except this small mouse pointer here, which will show you which button I am clicking. The first thing we are going to do is to click on File and click on Save. This will open the Save menu and you can name your file whatever you want. And I will name it 3D Room. And .blend is the default Blender extension. Next, click on Save Blender File to save your file. You will see that this top bar now shows the file name and where it is stored. So let's go through the interface slowly and see what we are working with. So when you open it for the first time, you will see a few things on the screen like this triangle and this thing, and there is another thing right here, and then there is this shape right in the center. This whole section or the region is called our viewport, or where we will see the objects and interact with them. This is our default cube. Everyone loves the default cube, and you can click to select this default cube. So you can click and it will be selected and highlighted in orange. You can see that it is also highlighted here as well. So you can click with your left mouse button. As you can see on the bottom left side, it says select. So when I click left button, it will select the cube. Similarly, I can click here to select this light, and similarly I can click here to select our camera. Next, if you want to zoom in or out, you can use the mouse scroll wheel. So if you scroll up, you will zoom in, and if you scroll down, you will scroll out. Always prefer using a mouse instead of the trackpad, but trackpad can also work. Next, to rotate your viewport, you will click and hold the middle mouse button, and then you will move your mouse in the direction you want to rotate. So just click and hold your middle mouse button and you can move the mouse to rotate the viewport. Next is the pan. So if you click and hold shift and then click and hold the middle mouse button, you can pan your viewport. So if you want to move left or right in the viewport, you'll hold shift and then you will hold the middle mouse button and then you will drag, as you can see on the left hand side as well. If you want to rotate the viewport, click on the middle mouse wheel and rotate. If you want to zoom in or out, just scroll your mouse wheel. You will see that you have some options here in the viewport. So the first one is zoom in and out. If you click this and then drag up on your mouse, you will zoom in, and if you drag down, you will zoom out. Similarly, if you click and hold this hand icon and then drag it, you will move the view. Next, if you hold any of these axes, let's say we press X and move it, it will rotate the X axis. So you can just hold this gizmo, this is called the gizmo, and you can move it to rotate the scene. So instead of using the middle mouse button, you can use this gizmo to rotate. You can click on X, Y and Z to go into the orthographic views or the views directly perpendicular to the camera. So just click on Z, X or Y to move to different views. You can always click and hold and drag these to go out of the orthographic view mode. There are shortcuts to it, so as we go and create the scene, we will see the shortcuts as well. Next is selecting and moving objects. So as I said earlier, you can click any object to select it, but if you see, you cannot click and drag it to rotate it or move it. So there are a few shortcuts which are very basic to Blender and you need to learn it from the first day. So that are G to grab. When you have something selected, you can press G once and now it is attached to your mouse. So if you move your mouse, you will see that it is now moving with your mouse. If you press right click, you cancel the operation and it moves to its initial point. So let's try it again. Click on it, press G and then you move your mouse to move it around. Press right click or escape to escape or cancel the movement or operation, and it will cancel out and move back to its original place. So let's do it one more time, but a little advanced this time. Select the object, press G to move, but this time instead of moving it with your mouse to all directions, you can press X to lock it in the X direction. Now if you move your mouse, you will see that it only moves in the X direction. Similarly, you can lock it to Y and the Z axis, and you don't need to cancel the operation to change the axis. Let's say you pressed Z first and you wanted to press X, so don't just right click and exit the operation, just press X and it will move in the X direction. And while you are at it, you can now press 1 on the number pad to move it exactly 1 meters. You can see on the top left corner there is distance 1 meter along the global x-axis. So now it is moved 1 meter, and if you now move the mouse, it will not move because you have used the number pad, so it takes input from the number pad. Now you can do two things. Press left click to confirm the operation and move it 1 unit, or right click to cancel the operation and move it back to its origin point. So let's right click, so now it moves back to the origin. Let's do it again. Let's move it 1 unit in the Z direction now. So we'll press G to grab, Z to lock it in the Z direction, and press 1 on the number pad to move it 1 in the Z direction, and left click to confirm the operation. Now if you rotate the view, you will see that it has now moved up. Earlier it was on the floor where this center point or origin of the scene was. So for now, I'll just press undo using Ctrl Z and move the cube back to its original location. Next is our rotate. So G was for grab, R is for rotate. So click the object to select it first and press R to rotate it. Now when you press R for the first time, you will see that now it's locked to the mouse and you can rotate it freely. And you can right click to exit the operation or left click to confirm the operation. Let's undo using Ctrl Z and let's try to rotate it on the Y axis by 90 degrees. So press to select the cube, press R to rotate, Y to rotate on the Y axis. You'll see now the Y axis is highlighted, and then let's say 45 degrees and press left click to confirm. Now it is rotated by 45 degrees on the Y axis. And now let's see the last basic operation, that is scale. So to increase or decrease the size of the cube, you press S to scale. Press S and move the mouse up and down to scale it in all directions uniformly. Similarly, you can press X, Y and Z to lock it in X, Y and Z directions, and of course you can press 2 on the number pad to make it 2 times bigger on the axis you selected. So let's undo, and now let's see how you can see these changes. So if you go right here, you'll see that there is an arrow right here. If you click it, it will bring this properties panel. You will not have this section because this is the extra add-on I enabled to make these keys appear, but do not worry, you will not need it. So you'll see that there are values which say location, rotation and scale and dimensions. So if you select anything, it will show you the location, rotation and scale of those objects. So you can select the light and it will show different things, and the camera and it will show different things. So let's say click on this cube and you will see location, rotation and scale. You can also change the location from here. You can click using your mouse and drag left and right to reduce, left and right to increase or decrease the value. Similarly, if you're doing this operation and you want to cancel it, just right click and it will exit out of the operation. So let's undo and move it back to the origin. So now let's move, rotate and scale it. So first of all, let's go into the front view. So you can press numpad 1 to go into the front view, or you will see that you will have this negative y in front of you to go in the front view. If you see a positive y, that means you are in the back view, and if you see the x or negative x, you are in the side view, which is accessible by numpad 3. So let's go back to the front view using numpad 1, and let's move the camera a little higher. So I just grabbed this and moved it downwards. Next, let's move, rotate and scale the cube. So click on the cube to select it, press G and X to lock it in the x-axis, and press 2 to move it 2 units on the x-axis, and left click to confirm the operation. Next, let's rotate it on the z-axis by 45 degrees. So while the cube is selected already, I'll press R to rotate, and I'll press Z to lock it in the Z direction, and enter 45 to rotate it 45 degrees, and press left click to confirm the operation. Next, I'll press S to scale and 2 to scale in all directions by 2 units, and I'll left click to confirm. So now you can see all the operations here also. So we moved the location in X by 2 meters, so it's updated here. The rotation is also updated here, and the scale is also updated here. And you'll see the dimensions of the cube are now 4 meters. So all of this distance, rotation and scale is with respect to origin and the center point of the geometry, or which is the origin of the geometry. This point that you see here is the origin of the geometry, and this red and white circle with the axes is the origin of the scene. So this cube, or the origin of this cube, is 2 meters on the x-axis from this origin. Next, a very simple command is Alt plus the 3 commands we learned just now. So Alt plus G will reset the location or clear the location. You will see that a clear location title appears here. Next, we'll use Alt and R to clear the rotation, and similarly we'll press Alt and S to clear the scale. So this will clear our scale as well. So G, R and S, and Alt G, Alt R and Alt S. Now we performed some operations on the cube, but we did not change the structure of the cube. So that is done in a view called as edit mode. So you'll see on the top we have our object mode here, but in object mode we can only move, rotate and scale the cube and perform some other actions, but that's for later. But we cannot change the actual structure of the cube. So you can click on any object and press tab to go into the edit mode. So you'll see I press tab and it will toggle the edit mode. So press on the object, press tab, and you'll go into the edit mode. You can also go on the top here and click it to move to other modes as well. So let's go back to edit mode. Now we have some points. So every object in Blender is made with points. 2 points connect to make an edge, which is this one, and multiple edges connect to make a face, which is this one. So let's go back into object mode and let's go back into edit mode. So when in edit mode, you will see that you have these 3 options here. These correspond to point, edge and face. When you select this point, you can left click to select the points or the vertices or the vertex, a single vertex. Next, if you select this one, you can select the edge, and next if you select this one, you can select the faces. These are, let me just zoom in and see them again. So this one is for vertex. You can also drag to select multiple ones. Second is for edge. You can drag to select multiple edges also. And third is for face. So you can select faces with that. You can also hold shift and then click on multiple faces to select them. So I just clicked on empty space to exit out of the selection. So let's go into the edge select mode, select this one, press and hold shift and then press this one, and now we are selecting multiple edges. Similarly for point mode, you can select one or you can hold shift and select multiple points. Now when you select a point, you'll notice that we can't move it again. So the shortcut is still the same. You press G and then you can move a point freely. You can press X to lock it in the X-axis, Y to lock it in the Y-axis, and right click to cancel out of operation and left click to confirm the operation. Similarly for edges, go into edge select mode, select any edge and press G and Y to move it in the Y direction, X to move it in the X direction, and Z to move it in the Z direction. And similarly, lastly for faces, select face select mode, click on a face and press G and Z to move it in Z direction, X to move it in X direction, and Y to move it in Y direction, and right click to edit out of it. Similarly, you can press S to scale and R to rotate the faces and lock it in any direction you want. Next command is deleting and adding objects. So you select the cube or anything and press X and you will see a delete dialog. So X is used to delete any selected objects. You click here and it will be deleted. So now we have deleted the default cube. So now we need to add objects. So if you see the top bar here in object mode, you will see this panel. You can click on add and you will see a bunch of options for things to add. So you can go to add, mesh, and if you select cube, you will get your default cube back, and you can press tab into edit mode and select point select mode or vertex select mode, and you will see that it's still the same. So let's go back, tab out of edit mode and press X to delete. Now you'll also need to learn the shortcut for this one, which is shift and A. Pressing this will bring an add menu on your cursor. So press shift plus A and that is to add, shift A to add, mesh, and then cube, circle, and a bunch of other things. And there's an Easter egg in Blender, which is the monkey, and its name is Suzanne. So you can add a Suzanne or the monkey head as well. Press X to delete it. We had two more buttons here, but I did not discuss about them. First is the camera or the camera view button. So you'll see that this is our viewport, but we also had a camera in the scene. Let's just zoom out to see the camera. So you'll see we have a camera, but we cannot see through the camera right now. So if you click on this button, you will see now we have a bounding box around our view, and this view is dark and this is light. So whatever is inside is what our camera is watching. So this thing is inside the frame of the camera and this thing is outside the frame of the camera. You can click it again to go out of the camera view mode. The shortcut for this is numpad 0. So press 0 on the number pad to go in and out of the camera view mode. Next and last is this view projection, which is perspective or orthographic. So let's just add a cube back, shift plus A, mesh and cube. To add a cube, let's zoom in. So if you press this toggle, you can switch in the orthographic and the perspective view. So in perspective view, you'll see that it is like a natural camera, or how we see things. The things in the back appear to be smaller and things near to us appear to be bigger. So let's for example choose this grid, and you will see that this square is looking bigger, meanwhile the squares here are looking smaller. But if we go into the orthographic mode, you will see that all the squares are looking equal. So there's no perspective or vanishing point in the orthographic view mode. You can still move your camera around and still do all the operations in the orthographic view as well. So that's the basic 3 commands and how to navigate the viewport in Blender, and I'll suggest you to take a break and play around with different objects, adding them and deleting them and moving them around, and then you can start the next section. So for the next section, let's first select everything. You can click and drag your mouse to select everything, or you can press A to select all. It's A to select all in the scene, and then let's press X and click on delete to delete everything. Now you will see that there is nothing in the scene. Now let's start by adding a plane. So press Shift A, and in the mesh section, the first one is the plane. So click and it will add a plane. Let's zoom in using mouse wheel or this zoom button, and let's get closer to the plane. Let's move the view also to look at it better. Now you will notice that we have something called a collection here, and this has a plane in it. So everything in Blender is collected in groups called as collections. So you can have multiple collections in the scene collection, which is the bigger group containing everything. So next thing we are going to learn is to extrude things. While the plane is selected, press tab to go into edit mode, and let's select the face mode first. So when you go into face mode, everything is selected by default, but let's press out of the plane to deselect everything, and you will see that its color is back to normal. But if we click and select the plane, that its color changes to a slightly orange, and now it is selected. Similarly, if you select edges and select any edge, its color changes to white. So we need to first go into the face mode, select the face, and press E to extrude. E to extrude. So let's click E, and you will see that we are already locked in the Z direction because it is perpendicular to the face. So if I move my mouse up and down, you will see that it is increasing and decreasing the height of the extrusion. So this is how we extrude things or edges in Blender. So if I extrude it and it's already locked to the plane, to the Z axis, and if I just press 2 on the number pad, it will extrude it by 2 meters as visible in the top left corner. So I'll left click to confirm the operation. And now if I zoom out and see it, it's already looking like the cube we had first. So let's see it again. Click on any face, press E to extrude, and now it's already locked in the perpendicular direction of the face. Let's select this face, press E to extrude, and you will see we have extrusions, and this is how we extrude faces. So just keep one thing in mind: when extruding, you always want to move away from the geometry and not inside the geometry. So always extrude to add something to it and not subtract something from it. So extrusion is always to add stuff. So press E and move outwards to extrude things. If you want to go inwards, this is not the proper way to do it because it will leave edges on the top and bottom. So let's select everything, press X and delete it again. Next, let's add a cube, and let's see how the inset works. So if you want to create a hole inside an object, you have to extrude it, but it's a little different. So press tab to go into edit mode and select the face select mode, this third one, and let's click on this upper face. So I'll press I to inset the face. So I'll press I to inset the face. So click I, and you will, if you drag the mouse, you will see that you cannot go outside it, but you will see that if you move your mouse inwards, you can go inside, or it creates a new face which is inside the original face. So let's say move it to here and press left click to confirm it. Now if you press E, you can extrude it outwards or you can extrude it inwards. And now we don't have a hanging edge outside. So let's say if we were to do it here and press E to extrude and go inwards, it will create edges like this or faces like this, which are a bit hard to work with later on in the project. So press undo, or just let's tab out to object mode, press X and click delete to delete everything. Now those are mostly the commands we are going to use in this tutorial. If there are more, I'll keep explaining them as we go. Now let's start making the isometric room. Things might seem to go a little fast from here, but rewatch at your own pace. So I'll just go to the file and click on new to make a new file in the general layout. So I'm in a new scene. Let's first of all save this file. Click on file, save, and save it wherever you want. So I'll name it 3D room tutorial and 1 at the end, and save Blender file. So now we have a camera, a cube, and a light. So first of all, I'll hide this light by pressing this eye icon. So you'll see that we have multiple icons here. This one is to hide and show the items in the viewport. So we'll hide the eye, the light, and let's hide the camera as well for now. So we have just the cube. Now press the cube, select the cube, press tab into edit mode, and we will delete these 3 faces in the front. So go into face select mode from this menu, or alternatively you can press 1 for vertex select, 2 for edge select, and 3 for face select mode. These are the 1 to 3 above the Q, W and E buttons and not on the number pad ones. So select face select mode, select this top face, shift select this right one and shift select this left one, and press X to delete the faces. Now we are left with 3 sides and a base. Press tab to exit the edit mode and we will move it up. Press G, Z, 1 to move it 1 unit above, and press left click or enter to confirm the operation. Now you will see we have a base. So currently the base and the sides are of same size and we don't want that. So let's reduce the height of the walls a little. So press tab to go into edit mode, select this edge, and you need to be in edge select mode to select it. So press 2 or select edge select from here and click this edge and click this edge, and then G to grab and move, and Z to lock it in the Z direction, and let's say 0.5 on the keypad to move it 0.5, but you'll notice that it moves along the positive Z axis. So if you press negative before or after you enter the digits, you can reverse the direction. Left click or enter to confirm the operation. And now we have the base of our room ready. Let's rename it. You can double click here on the file name, on the object name, to rename the things. So let's name it room. Next, as I told you, this is a collection, that is a group of objects. So let's make another collection here. So in this area, right click and press new collection. So now we have a new collection. Press on it, left click to select it, double click to rename it, and let's name it room objects and press enter to confirm. Now if this is selected, all the things that you add now will go into this collection. So it's better to group things in different collections so you can turn them on and off later together. So let's start by adding a cube. Press shift plus A and then mesh and cube. Tab into edit mode, S to scale, and move your mouse in to scale it. It will always scale from the origin, so scale it in and press left click to confirm. Next, tab out of edit mode, press G and Z to move it up. Now if you want to change the view, because not everything is very clearly visible, you can go on the top right bar here, press on this down arrow, and then you can click on this ball to change the materials in the viewport. So I'll select this third one and now it's better visible, and also you can turn on this cavity and this shadow to make it even more visible or even more better, but keep in mind that this uses more memory. So let's turn off shadow and just use the cavity. Now we have the cube ready. Let's turn this into a TV unit. So I'll press / to isolate it to go into the local view and zoom out a little. So press 1 to go into the front view tab to go into the edit mode, A to select everything, S to scale, and X to lock it in the X direction. And let's enter a value of 2 to scale it by 2 units, and left click to confirm the operation. And you will see that we also have the resize panel showing how much it is rescaled. You can expand or contract it from right here. Next, tab out to go into object mode, press G and Z to move it down, and let's move it near to the baseline or this axis line. So it is close but it's not touching it. And press / again to exit out of the local view. Now I'll rotate it. So while the cube is selected, press R then Z to lock it in the Z axis and rotate it by 90 degrees. Left click to confirm the operation, and now we will move it back into this wall. Now one thing I like to do is go into this panel and turn on this move gizmo. So if I turn this on, you will see that now all of the things have these 3 arrows. So if I click here, you will see that it has it here, and if I click this cube, it has it here. So this helps moving the objects very fast. Instead of pressing G and X, Y, Z, you can just click on this arrow or axis line and then just move the object however you want. So I'll move the object closer to the wall, and you can always press 1 to go into the front view and check where it is, and you can also press 3 to go into the right view and see if it is in the center or not. And then you can rotate the view by pressing middle mouse and rotating, or you can use this gizmo to rotate your view. So this will be a basic cabinet. We'll add some details later to it, but now let's add a TV unit above it. So the next command we are going to use is duplicating an object, which is hold an object or press an object to select it, and then press Shift and D to duplicate an object. So now if you press Shift and D and don't click anything, you will see that the object is now attached to your mouse. So if you right click, it will cancel the operation and place it right where the object was originally. So it will not cancel the duplicate, but it will place it on the original location. So it will cancel the movement. But if you left click, it will place it wherever you have it in the scene right now. So I'll right click to place it on the original location. So now you will also see that we have a cube and then we have another cube. So while the second cube is selected, I'll click and drag this blue arrow to move it in the Z direction. And to work a little bit easier, I'll just click on the room and hide it. You can hide it from the outliner using this I button. So now that it is hidden, let's work on our TV unit. So press tab to go into the edit mode. Let's zoom it in a little, and then press S and X to scale it in the X direction, and press S and then scale it a little bit up, and I think that's a good size. Now we are going to make the base of the TV from the back side. So now rotate your viewport to go into the back side of the TV. Select this face. First you need to be in the face select mode. Select this face, select face select mode, and select this face. Now let's press I to inset a new face. Then let's move it backwards. Now let's press E again to extrude it a little out. And then let's rotate the view. Select this bottom face and press E again, and then move it a little down. Now I did not bring it to the bottom because I want another piece of geometry between them. So I don't bring it to the bottom, but if you do, just select the face and move it a little bit higher. Next, extrude it again, and this time we'll bring it approximately to the table. So click and confirm the operation. Next, I'll click on this face, select this face, and then press E to extrude it outwards. So this will be the base of our TV. And then I'll press tab to go out of the edit mode. So this is going to be our basic TV. Now the table is looking a bit small, so click on the table, press tab to go into edit mode, S to scale and Y to scale it in the Y direction. You can always press 1 and 3 to see from the orthographic view and have a better look on the scene. Press tab to go out of edit mode, and we have our TV and the basic cupboard ready. We will visit it back to add some details, but let's go slowly from here. So always rename your objects. So click on the object, and now let's learn another shortcut. Press F2 to rename the unit. So let's name it TV space unit. Similarly, press on the TV, click to select the TV and press F2 to name it TV and click to confirm. Now let's zoom out and unhide our room to see how it looks in the space. So it's looking good. Now let's add another wooden unit on this side. So press Shift A, mesh and a cube to add a cube. Press tab to go into edit mode, S to scale and scale it around 0.25. Press tab to go out of edit mode, move it up and press 1 to go into front view and move it approximately near the floor. And let's just turn on the shadow to see things better. Now I'll move it on the Y axis near the wall, and it still looks a bit big, so let's tab into edit mode, select this face, then move it a little backwards, then press A to select everything and S and X to scale it in the X direction. Around this much. Press tab to go back into object mode and move it to the side. So now we have a side unit as well. I think it looks a bit bigger, so press tab to go into edit mode again and S and X to scale it in the X direction a little. Tab to go out to object mode and move in the X direction to place it along the edge of the room. Let's make some space or compartments in this wooden table. So press tab to go into edit mode, and now we need a little more geometry to work with it. So to add more geometry or edges to a object, you press Ctrl R and hover around an edge. So you'll see that if I hover around an edge, I get this yellow line which will add another set of edges around the perimeter of the object. So you can click to confirm it and it will, and now your mouse pointer changes to the double arrow, so you can go left and right before placing the edge. So this operation is called a loop cut, and if you press right click, you can confirm the movement in the center of the edges, center of this face. So this is called a loop cut and slide. The slide is to signify that you slide it along the edge anywhere you want to, but if you right click, you place it right in the middle. So let's Ctrl Z and do it again. So press Ctrl R to activate the loop cut, and then now this time scroll your mouse wheel up and you have multiple loop cuts now. So you can add as many as you want, but we are going to need 2 for this one. So scroll down until you get 2 and then left click to confirm that you want 2, and then it will start sliding them. So you just right click to confirm that you want them in equal distance from all the sides. Next we need a loop cut along this side as well. So press Ctrl R, hover around this edge, left click and then right click to place it. So that gives us extra edges to work with. Next, go into the face select mode and select this face, shift click this and all the other faces in the front. So now we have selected all the faces. Press I to inset. Now you will see that we are adding geometry inside the faces, but they are still connected to each other. So you can see the top bar shows some options, and in that there is an option called individual, which is off currently. So if I press I again, you will see now that all of the faces are being inserted individually. So if I press I again, they are still connected. If I press I again, you'll see that they are being inserted individually. So I'll confirm it around here. Now while the faces are selected, don't click or select anything outside it, but if you do, let's say, just press Ctrl Z so that it's still on the selected faces. Now let's press E, and it's already locked to the Z direction, and go backwards to make some empty space for the compartments. So just eyeball it, and I think this much is good. So now sometimes you can't see where these edges have been placed. If you go into the front view, you can see them, but if you go into the right view, you roughly have an idea that they are here according to this pointer, but you're not sure about it. So this is where the X-ray mode comes in handy. So along these 4 view modes, there is another button here which is for the toggling the X-ray mode. So when you toggle it, and now if you move the gizmo, you can see through objects and see all the edges internally. Now we are in the edit mode of this one, so we only see this one with all the edges and faces, but this one is still intact. So now if you press 3 to go into the side view, you can see that these edges are around somewhere here. So let's move them a little forwards or adjust them if needed. Next, let's turn the X-ray mode off and tab to go out of the edit mode again. Now we have a simple compartment. Now let's make some shelves and some paintings. So press Shift A, Mesh and Cube to add a cube. Tab to go into edit mode. S to scale and make it a lot smaller. Click to confirm. Tab to go out of edit mode. Move it up and move it near to this wall. Press 3 to go into the right view, and let's move it closer to this wall. Now let's press tab to go into edit mode again, S and Z to scale it in the Z direction. So we make it a bit thin, and left click to confirm. Then press S and X to scale it in the X direction. Tab to go out of edit mode and move it a little down. So now we have a small simple shelf. Similarly, let's add 2 picture frames right here. So press Shift plus A, Mesh and Cube to add a cube. Tab into edit mode, S to scale, and let's make it a very small. Click to confirm. Tab to go out of edit mode. Then let's move it up and let's move it backwards. Let's zoom in and work from a little closer. Press tab to go into edit mode, S and X to scale in the X direction, and we have something that looks like a picture frame. But to improve it even more, let's select this front face. While in the face select mode, select this first face, press I to inset and inset it a little, then press E to extrude it inwards a little, and press tab to go out of edit mode. So now we have something that looks like a picture frame. So let's go into the front view and move it closer to the wall, and move it a little up as well. You can also go 3, press 3 to go into the side view and move it to the side. Now while in this mode, press Shift D to duplicate it, and you will see that it's now attached to a mouse. Let's press Y to move it in the Y direction and click to confirm. Now let's move it a little down and adjust the position as needed. and slowly our room is looking better. Now let's add a plant right here. So for the first time we are going to add something other than a plane or a cube. So press Shift plus A, mesh, and then let's add a circle. You will see a faint circle appearing right here and a add circle dialog here. So click on it and don't let it disappear. If it disappears, just add the circle again. So let's say you clicked outside and now you cannot access it. There's a shortcut for it. Press F9 to bring that circle menu again, but it only works if you have not performed any other operation. If you have done something else like moving anything or scaling anything, this won't appear with F9, but only the previous action will appear with it. So let's add it again. Let's select the circle, press X to delete it, press Shift A, mesh and circle to add a circle. Click on this add circle and let's make the vertices 16 and let's make the radius 0.25, and other than that we will leave everything. So we'll just change the vertices to 16 and radius to 0.5 and leave everything else at default and close this menu. Now we are in the object mode and the circle is already selected. So let's press / to isolate it. Next press tab to go into edit mode, 1 on the keyboard to go into the vertex select mode. You can also go in the vertex select mode from here. So if you have a circular loop like this, you can press F to fill that face. So if it is closed loop, you can press F to fill it. Now let's go into the face select mode and you will see that this face is already selected. If not, click on this face to select it. Now let's press E and then it's already locked in the Z direction. If not, you can just press Z to lock it and just move it a little higher. Then let's press I to inset this face around this much and then press E to extrude it a little downwards. If you want to see the inside, you can toggle X-ray mode from here and move it to this much. Let's turn this off and press tab to go out of the edit mode. Now let's press Shift A, mesh and circle to add another circle. So Blender will remember your last added object and keep the dimensions same. So this new circle is also the same as the last one. So let's click on this and let's make the radius 0.2 and press enter and close this. So if we go into the X-ray mode, you will see that it is a bit smaller now. Let's move it a little bit higher, around this much, and sometimes it's better visible without the X-ray mode. And then press tab to go into edit mode and F to fill the face. Now if we press tab to go out to object mode again and then close the X-ray mode, you can see we have the circle which will represent the soil. We have this pot shaped structure also which will become our pot. So now we have a flower pot and a soil. So let's rename it soil and let's rename this one with F2 flower pot. Now let's add some leaves to it. So press Shift plus A, mesh and plane to add a plane, and let's move it a little bit up to see it better. Now press tab to go into edit mode, press S and Y to scale it on the Y axis and S and X to scale it on the X axis. Now we need a little more geometry here, so we'll go into edit mode again and press Ctrl R and we will hover near this edge and scroll up 2 times to get 3 edge loops. Now to confirm the operation, first left click and then don't move your mouse but right click to confirm the operation on equidistant parts. Next we are going to add a loop cut along the center as well. So press Ctrl R, hover near this edge and click and then right click to add this cut. Now select this vertex and move it along the x-axis a little. Now we want to add a little curve to this leaf shape. So press tab to go into edit mode, and we want to select this and this vertex, the ones in the middle, and move them a little up. So you'll notice that it moves them up, but this creates a weird shape because other vertices are not moving with it. So let's Ctrl Z to undo, and now we will learn something called proportional editing. So if you go on the top bar, you will see that there is a circular button, and let's click to turn it on. It's also called proportional editing, and the shortcut for it is O. Press and you will see now this is on. So now if you move it up, you will see that there is a big circle appearing on the screen. This is the circle of influence, that is how many vertices or how much area around it is affected by this movement. You can increase or decrease this using the mouse wheel. So mouse scroll up will decrease the area of influence, and mouse wheel down will increase the area of influence. So we want it to influence all the leaf, so we don't want it small, but we want it a little bigger. So scroll wheel down will increase the area, and we want it something like this. And when you leave the mouse, it will confirm the operation. So now we have a leaf that is a little bent. So let's select this bottom vertices, all of them, by control and dragging, by left click and dragging, or just click on it and shift click the other ones and press S and Y to scale it on the Y axis. Now you will notice that since we have proportional editing on, the other vertices are also getting affected, and we definitely want that. So if you reduce it, you will notice that now the other ones are not being affected because they are outside the circle of influence. But let's just increase it till some of them are affected, and press left click to confirm the operation. Now we have a little leaf like structure. Now you'll notice that the origin of our leaf is here, but the leaf is actually here. So if you want to move the origin, you can just go tab into edit mode, select everything by pressing A, and then move it closer to the origin. Press 1 to go into the front view to match it, and then press 3 to match it from side view as well. Tab to exit out of the edit view. Now we have our basic leaf ready. Let's press R and then Y to rotate it on the Y axis. Let's rotate it around this much. You can see that it's by 42 degrees. Let's move it a little down and a little in the X axis. And now we have one leaf. Now we can duplicate these leaves and fill our plant. So press Shift D to duplicate it and right click to cancel the operation. Now you can move it freely and rotate it however you want. So RZ and then rotate it by around 180 degrees roughly. Then select this one and then shift click to select this one, and while both are selected, Shift D to duplicate them, then do nothing, just click R, then click Z and then click 90 to move them by 90 degrees. So we have a basic plant like looking thing. They look a bit big, so let's select all of them, then press S and move the mouse in to scale them inwards. Now we want them to be in their own group. So let's select all of them by dragging the mouse and then press M to move them to a new collection. So you can also create a collection from here or select one that is already made. So I'll click on new collection and then name it flower pot and click on OK, and then you will see here in this menu that there is a new collection named flower pot, and all of these objects are now in the flower pot collection. So let's press / to exit the view. Now you will notice that the flower we made is very big, so we want to scale all of them around the size so that it can fit here. Now if you select one and try to scale it, it will not be scaled, and if you select all of them you might select something outside of the collection, and then that will be also scaled with it. So there's a better way to select all the objects in a collection. You can go in the outliner here, select the collection, right click and select objects. This will select all the objects inside the collection. Now if you press S, it will scale along the center of the object, but let's say we don't want that. So right click to exit out of the select scale mode. Now let's talk about the pivot points. So this menu right here, or this drop down right here, has the pivot points. Currently it's set to median, which means that it's scaling from the median of these points. So we will change it to the 3D cursor. Now you'll see that this is the pivot point of transformations. So now if you press S to scale and then move it in, move the mouse inwards, it will scale from the pivot point. So let's scale it around this much, and while everything is selected, move it up, and now you'll notice that the gizmos appear on the origin point and not on the object. So we will have to change it back to the median point, or you can also use bounding box center, which means it creates an imaginary bounding box around all of the objects, something like a cube, and then the center of it is used as the pivot point. So let's select this one, and now let's rotate the view, or press 3 to go into the side view and move it roughly near the wall, and move it down as well. So you'll notice that the leaf is going through the wall. Let's make this shelf a little bigger. So select the shelf, tap to go into edit mode, select face select mode, select this face, and then move it a little outwards. Now you'll notice that everything is moving with it because we have proportional editing on. So just right click to cancel the operation, click on this blue dot to turn off proportional editing, and then move it a little outwards. Then press tab to go out of edit mode again. Now select something from this collection, go to the collection menu, right click and select objects to select everything, and then move it a little outwards. Now it's still going through the wall, but while everything is selected, press R to rotate and Z to rotate it on the Z axis. Let's just rotate it so that nothing is touching the wall, and press left click to confirm the operation. So now we have a small flower pot and it's not touching the edge of the wall. Next, let's add another flower pot in a similar manner, and let's add a simple small low poly tree in it. Press Shift A, Mesh and Circle to add a circle of the same size. Tab to go into edit mode, F to fill the face, and E to extrude it upwards. Click to confirm, and let's zoom in a little bit closer. Then press I to inset around this much, and then E to extrude downwards. Always remember to turn on X-ray mode to see where the lines are, and turn it off again. Now let's add the soil as well. Press Shift A, Mesh and Circle, and we cannot see it, but it's there. So press tab into edit mode and F to fill the face. If you are not sure that the object is added or not, you can always press / to go into the local view to see it. Let's exit out of the local view by pressing the / key again, tab to go out of edit mode, and then move it a little bit up. And it's a bit bigger, so let's tab into go edit mode again, S to scale. Let's make it a little smaller and go back into object mode again. Next, let's add a little tree shape here. So for this one, we will start with the circle again. Press Shift A, Mesh and Circle to add a circle, and this time I'll press the / to go into the local view. Now tab to go into edit mode, F to fill the face, and we have a flat disk. Press E to extrude it. Let's extrude it around this much and click to confirm. Let's press Ctrl R to add loop cuts, and let's add 3 by scrolling up on the mouse wheel. Left click to confirm the number of cuts, and then right click to confirm the placement in the middle. Now we are going to scale this face, so select face select mode, select this face and scale it in. You will notice that this is only scaling this face, but we want to scale these with it as well. So let's turn on proportional editing by clicking here or pressing O on the keyboard. So now that the proportional editing is on, press S to scale, and now you will see everything is being scaled. We don't want this much scaling happening. So let's scroll up on the mouse wheel and you will see the shape now changes. So you can drag the mouse left and right to change the scale, and you can drag the mouse wheel up and down to change the influence of the proportional editing. So let's scale it around this much so that it's only affecting 2 of them, and click to confirm. Let's move it a little down. Press tab to go out of edit mode, and we have a circular type shape. Now let's move it a little up, and then let's add another circle. Shift A, mesh and circle. Tab to go into edit mode, A to select everything, S to scale. Let's scale it in. You can turn the proportional editing off now if you want. While everything is selected, F to fill the face and E to extrude it upwards. Now we want to extrude so that it reaches our tree part. So press 1 to see it from the front view and turn on X-ray editing, X-ray mode from this toggle, and you will see that it is in the tree already. Let's turn off X-ray mode and let's select this bottom face and move it a little up because we have the flower pot as well. Let's tab to go out of edit mode, then let's press / to go into the global view. Now you see we have a shape like this. So select this and let's move it a little bit up. Now everything is a bit big, so let's select everything by pressing shift and left clicking on everything. Let's press M and move it to their own collection. Let's name it pot. Now we have them in their own separate collection, and now let's scale it a little bit smaller. So again it's scaling from the bounding box center, but we don't want that. So let's go into the transform pivot point and let's select 3D cursor. Now let's scale it a bit smaller, and now let's move it to the back of the room, but before that we'll change the transform point to bounding box cursor. You can always go into the front, left and right view to see if it's placed correctly. You can also press 7 to go into the top view as well. Now let's make a small table and a rug for the room. Press Shift A, mesh and circle to add a circle, but it's a bit smaller, so go into the edit properties and let's make the vertices 32 again, and then let's make the radius 0.4. Next, tab to go into edit mode, select everything with A and F to add a face or fill a face. Then while everything is selected, press E to extrude it a little bit upwards. So I moved it around 0.008 in the Z direction. Tab to go out of edit mode, and we have a small rug or carpet in the room. Similarly, we'll add a table as well. Press Shift A, mesh and a plane to add a plane this time. While it is selected, / to go into the local view. Press tab to go into edit mode, and let's add a few loop cuts. Ctrl R to add loop cut and add one on this side. Left click to confirm the number of cuts and right click to confirm the operation. Similarly on this side, Ctrl R, left click, right click. Now press A to select everything and press E to extrude it a little towards top. So now we have a shape something like this. Tab to go out of edit mode and let's move it a little bit up. Now this is a bit big because we did not change the overall scale. So let's tab to go into edit mode and let's scale it inwards. Let's press A to select everything and S to scale. Now let's make the legs of the table. So press tab to go into edit mode again, and we will need to select the bottom 4 faces. So with your mouse wheel, click and hold the mouse wheel and drag it so that we can see the lower faces. Select all of these faces while in the face select mode and press I to inset. If it looks like this, that means you don't have the individual option on, so press I to make it individual faces and inset it a lot so it's something around this size. Left click to confirm, and now while these 4 faces are selected, press E to extrude them downwards. Now roughly extrude them till the floor and press 1 to go into the front view to see how much length it is having or height it has. So we don't want a very big table, so let's make it around this much. Press tab to exit the edit view and then let's move it down. And now we have a small table. Press / to exit the view and you will see it's still a bit bigger than we like. So let's scale it even more. And then let's move it down. Now let's add the last few remaining things and then we'll move to materials. Press Shift A, Mesh and Cube to add a cube. Tab to go into edit mode, S and Z to scale it on the Z axis. SY to scale it on the Y axis and SX to scale it on the X axis. Now press tab to go out of edit mode and let's move it up and back to this side. Tab to go into edit mode again and scale it a little more in all directions. SX to scale in the X direction and let's move it down and back. Now let's go into edit mode again. Select this top face and move it down. Then we'll add some edge loops again to create some geometry or to add some geometry. So let's press Ctrl R to add a loop cut and then we will scroll up once to add 2 loop cuts. Left click to confirm the operation and right click to reset the location. Now while the loops are selected, press S to scale, but we don't want to scale it in all directions because it gets distorted. So press X to lock it in the X direction, and now you can move these loop cuts freely. So we'll move it a little outwards and press left click to confirm it here. Now let's add another loop cut. Ctrl R to add loop cut and left click to confirm it, and this time we'll move it towards the back side and go till here and then left click to confirm. Now we'll go into the face select mode, select this face and then shift select these faces as well. Now we have the faces on the border selected. Now press E to extrude and extrude it a little to up. Now we will deselect this and this face, so when there are multiple faces selected, you can press shift and click on the face again to deselect it. Now we will press E again to extrude it even more. So now we have a basic sofa shape. So now let's move this rug or carpet and this table towards right side or on the X axis, so it's sitting in front of the sofa. Now let's add some details to this cabinet as we promised earlier. So click on this cabinet and press / to go into the local view. Press tab to go into edit mode and we'll add a loop cut along this edge. So Ctrl R and click to add a loop cut and right click to reset the location. Then while in the face select mode, we'll select this face and press I to inset them, and you'll see that these are not individual, so we'll press I again and they will become individual insets. Let's left click to confirm and press E to extrude them backwards. And if you want to see where they are going, you can always turn on the X-ray mode. So let's extrude them till here and press this to turn off X-ray mode again. The shortcut for this is Alt and Z, so you can remember that. Now press tab to go out of edit mode and we'll press the / again to move out to the global view or to exit the local view. Now let's add a few books in these compartments to make it look a little better. So we'll just use simple cubes in colors. So press Shift A, Mesh and Cube. Tab into edit mode, S and X to scale in the X direction, SZ to scale in the Z direction, and SY to scale in the Y direction. Scale on the X again and scale on the Z again, and scale as much as needed. Now let's move it up and move it towards the right. So it's still big, so tab into edit mode, SZ and SX and SY. Now let's move it to front and move it down to place it in the cabinet. Now you can just duplicate them using Shift D. So let's first move it to a new collection. Press M and click on new collection and name it books. Click OK, and we'll also rename the book as well. So press F2 and rename it book.001. So there's a reason for this 001 and click enter. Now you will see that this is named 001, book.001. So when I use Shift D to duplicate it and press X to move it in the X direction and left click to confirm, you will see that this new one is now book.002. So Blender names them incrementally, so it's helpful to name a series starting from .001. Now there's a cool trick in Blender. If you haven't done anything after duplicating this book, you can press Shift and R to repeat the last action. So let's say you select this book and you duplicate it using Shift D and then press X to move it in the X direction and place it here. Now if you press Shift R, it will repeat the same action. So let's just duplicate the books a little more using Shift D and then X to move it in the X direction. And I think those much are good. So I think that's it for our basic room. Now let's see a few more settings and then we'll move to the coloring. So if you see, some objects have very visible lines. Now the first thing is this is due to the cavity which we turned on from here. So if you go into this top bar and click on this arrow and turn off the cavity, you will see that most of the hard white lines are gone, and you can also turn off shadow from here, but then it does not look very good. So let's turn on shadow and keep the cavity off. Now you'll see that some surfaces have a very smooth texture while these have visible edges and faces. So what you can do is click on it and right click, and there are 3 shading options. Currently or by default, every face or every object is shaded flat, so this shade flat is selected. Let's change it to shade smooth. Now you'll see those edges are gone, but we have this weird shading going on. So let's right click and click on shade auto smooth. Now you'll see that the weird shading is gone and we have a little better looking tree. You can do it similarly for these ones and whatever you think needs it. So shade smooth turns on smooth shading and shade auto smooth, and shade auto smooth is a mix between shade flat and shade smooth. So it takes some faces and shades them flat and others shades them smooth based on the angle between them. Let's do it for them as well. Right click, shade auto smooth, right click, shade auto smooth, right click, shade auto smooth. What's left? I think no other part needs a smooth shading in this scene. So now we have our basic scene done. Now let's move to the coloring. So you will see that we did not use the 4 views from here. So the first one is the wireframe mode, which shows the wireframe or all the objects in wired mode. The next is the basic shading mode, which we were using right now, that is the viewport shading. And third is the material preview, which shows a preview of the materials when you have some colors and things going on. And the last one is the actual rendered view mode, which shows the colors or the materials when you have them. So let's switch to the third one, or the material preview, for now. You will remember that we had a light in the room and we turned it off. So let's turn it on. But let's move to the rendered preview mode and let's turn on the light. So now you will see that this light is affecting the scene and we can actually see something. So if you turn off this light, we cannot actually see anything. So we'll turn the light on and we'll also turn the camera on now. So let's find the camera. So this is our camera and this is our light. So if now we go press 0 and view the scene from the camera, you will see that this is what our camera sees. So let's go into the material preview mode and let's start adding some materials. So for the materials, you can stay in this layout mode, or what you can do is move to this shading tab. So let's move to the shading tab for now. So you'll see that things look different here. There is a background which is an HDRI, which is basically a 360-degree image which provides lighting to the scene. This is our file manager. We actually don't need this file manager. So what you can do is click on this file icon and select 3D viewport from here. So now you have the same thing as we had in the layout menu. Let's go back to shading and let's move the gizmo so we can see it better. Next, you can also use your mouse to resize these windows so you can see things better. Let's zoom in and start adding materials. Select the object you want to add a material to and you will see that by default it has a material called material. So if you select everything, it might not have a material, but some things have a material assigned to them. So let's go back to the layout mode again and let's see where the materials can be selected or added. So if you select this, we haven't talked about this whole menu yet. So let's start with the last one, or the second last one here. If you click on this, this is our material tab. So you'll see Blender creates a basic material called material for us in the beginning, and this is applied to any object that has a material. Some objects do not have it, but some will have it. So this will be the basic. So let's click on this right here and rename it to white, because this is the default white material. You can click on this base color to change the material to anything you'd like. As with other operations, you can right click to cancel out of the operation. Now let's select any object. Let's move to the basic default view. Let's click on this object And now if you go into the material tab, now if you select any object, you can click plus to add a new material to it. And if you want to select a previous material, you can click on this drop down and you will see that there are materials and you can select the material to add it. If you accidentally add a different material to it, you can just click on this drop down and select other materials. And if you want to remove the material, you can click on this cross to remove any material from it. The material slot is still there, but there is no material in this slot. To remove the actual material slot, you have to press this negative button. So that removes any material slot from it. So first, clicking on this new will add a material slot as well as a material, and clicking on this cross will remove the material but keep the slot. One material can have different slots, which we will see later, but for now we will keep it simple and keep only one material in it. So let's remove all materials and all slots and let's start shading it in the shading tab. So on this window, I will click on this button to go into the orthographic view mode, and let's just hide the camera for now. And let's just switch to the render preview mode. Now this is just to see how things look, and this is the actual part we're going to click and edit objects or add object slots, add material slots. Now this window is a little bit different, so let's go through it. This is our viewport and this is our UV editor. We don't need it right now, so let's just ignore it. And this is our materials panel. Let's resize a little, and this is where we change settings for our materials. Select any material you want. Let's select this wall, and we have the white selected here. So let's click on the cross to remove the material, and then click on this plus to add a new material. Now let's name it the walls. Click on this base color and let's move it to something like this. Now you will see that there is a difference in color in this color and in this color. So this is our actual render view. This is how the render will look in the end, and this is just a material preview mode with a basic lighting added. So if we switch to the render view, then these two will match. So to match these two or to add better lighting to it, we can use something called an HDRI. So let's go back into the layout mode and let's go through these options, and then let's add our HDRI. So let's go into the render settings mode, and there are two render engines. First one is Eevee, which is a quick and real-time engine, and second is Cycles. Cycles works like a real lighting. Cycles uses your GPU, so if you have a good GPU, always use Cycles, but if you don't have a very good GPU, it's better to use Eevee for animations and stuff which is heavy, and for still images you can still use Cycles. So to check your GPU, let's go into edit menu right here and click on preferences, and then in the system tab you will see that it might be set to none for you, but if you go to optics or CUDA, you will see your GPU here. So let's go into optics and turn on your GPU if you have one from here. Tick to turn it on, then click on this button and click on save preferences, then close this window. So most of the viewers watching this or using Blender for the first time might not have a very powerful GPU, so we'll first light the scene in Eevee and then let's maybe light it in Cycles as well. So for Eevee, let's go to the render view mode first, and you will see that there is no lighting right here because there is no actual light reflections or many reflections happening in the scene. So if let's just say for example switch to Cycles and switch your device from CPU to GPU, you will see that there is some lighting here, and the lighting is already much better than it was in Eevee. So let's switch back to Eevee and then first light it in Eevee. So first of all, let's turn on ambient occlusion, and now you'll see that we have some light going on in these cabinets as well. Let's zoom in and see the effect in real time. So if you turn it off, you'll see that no light reaches this part, but if you turn on ambient occlusion, some light reaches this part, similar to the Cycles engine. let's turn on bloom as well, which gives the vibrant effect to our renders. This might not be needed in this scene, so let's turn it off. Then let's go to our color management and let's select the view transform to AGX. It might be set to standard for you, but you can turn to AGX or filmic. So I like AGX, so I'll turn to AGX, and for the look I'll turn it to medium high contrast, so the colors are a bit punchy. Now if we turn off the light, we'll not have a very good lighting, but with the light on we have some shadows and lighting in the scene. Let's go into this shadows option and turn on high bit depth, so the shadows are a bit better, and you can also turn on soft shadows to make them softer. So you'll see that these shadows are a bit jagged. So if we click on soft shadows, the shadows are now soft. You can also increase this cube size to increase the resolution of the shadows. So the bigger the size, the better the shadow resolution. So let's keep it to default or 1024 for both the cube and the cascade size. The more you increase it, the more memory you need it to render the scene or calculate the shadows. Next we are going to go to film and turn on transparent. Now the change will not be visible directly, so we'll come back to it in a moment. Next we'll go to this output page and we'll probably not change anything from here for now. Next, you don't need to go into these two for now, but let's go into this setting called the world. Now by default there is a color set for the background, so you have the surface which says background and you have the color which says this gray color. If you click on this color and let's move this slider up, you'll see that the color of our background changes in the render view mode. So this affects the lighting in our scene also. So you'll see that this color is now displaying differently than it was displaying previously. So you can use something like an HDRI, or which is a 360-degree image which affects the lighting in the scene. So to use that, click on this yellow dot and select environment texture from here. So go to color, click on this yellow dot and select environment texture. Now you'll see that the scene turns pink. Now in most cases, if something turns pink in Blender, that means it needs an input. So you'll see that we have a new option here which is new and open, which means that we need to give it some image. So we will click on open and then you need to browse to your HDRI. So you can visit this site called HDRI Haven or Polyhaven to get your HDRIs. So let's go to Polyhaven and you can see all the HDRIs, and these are free to download and these provide different lightings to your scene. Now you can download any you want, and the one I use is called Autoshop and I'll link it in the description. I also use this Studio Small 09 a lot, so I'll just link mine in the description. So once you've downloaded it and placed in some folder, you just browse to that folder and then you can select your HDRIs. So I have these all downloaded, so you can, when you download one, wherever you keep it, just browse to that folder and then click on it and click on open image to open that HDRI. Now you'll see that the lighting in the scene is already a bit better, but the whole scene is now in the background. So let's see some different HDRIs and how they affect the scene. So if you want to change it, you can just press this cross to remove it and then click on open and then select some other HDRI. So let's select this studio and you will see it's very bright than the last one. Let's remove it again and open another one, and let's select this night. So you'll see that this has different mode of lighting than the other one. So depending on which type of scene you are trying to make, you can select any HDRI you want. So I'll click on open and then go to HDR and then select this Autoshop. So I'll link this one in the description. You can download it for free and use it in your scene as well. So click on open image and then you will see that we have better lighting in our scene. Now there's this strength option, so you can reduce or increase the strength of the HDR however you want. So by default it's 1. Sometimes it's very harsh or very bright, so you can reduce it to something like 0.5. Especially if you're using cycles, you should reduce it to 0.5 or maybe 0.1, because in cycles it's very bright, but in EV render engine it's good to have it at the default 1. So I'll keep it to the default value of 1. Now let's go back into the render tab, and now in the film tab let's turn on transparent, and now you will see that the background is again transparent. And now we can start working on our scene. So let's go back into the shading tab, and you will see that our render view is now looking better. So let's click on the walls again and change the color. You can notice the hex value from here, or you can experiment with whatever you like. Let's select the wood cabinet, click on plus to add a new material, and let's name it wood. And for this scene I'll just keep the materials to simple basic colors. Let's change it to something like this. You can note the hex from here, and let's play around a little with these sliders. So for wood material you can increase this roughness slider. So if you reduce it, you will see that the material becomes very shiny, and if you increase it, the shine is gone. So for wood you can increase all the way to 1, or let's say just 0.8. Now similarly we want the wood to be on this table and this cabinet and this shelf as well. So select the table, and instead of adding a new slot, just click on this drop down and select the wood material. Select this cabinet, drop down and select the wood material. Click on this also, drop down and click on wood to add the wood color to all of them. So the room is looking like the wood, so let's change the color of the walls. Let's change it. Next, let's add a color to the sofa. Click to select the sofa, click plus to add new material, click on this material and name it either the object or the color you want. So let's make it blue, I guess. Let's select the carpet, let's match it with the sofa. Let's select the flower pot and click on new, and let's add a pot material and click on the base color and let's make it brown. Let's select the tree trunk, click plus to add a new color and then give it a brown color as well, but a different brown color. Let's also rename the color to brown or trunk, brown trunk. Let's select this plant, click on plus and let's add a green color. Click on the base color and let's select a green color for it, and let's increase the roughness to 1. You can increase or decrease the lightness or darkness of the color through this slider and select the color from this slider. So we'll add the same green color to the leaves as well. So let's zoom in, select the leaf, click on the drop down and select the green. Similarly, we'll add the green color to all of the leaves. Next, select this pot and add the pot color to it. And for the soil, in this one, select the soil and click on plus to add a new color. name it soil. Let's make it dark brown. Similarly, we'll add it to this one as well. Next, let's color the books. So you can just give random colors to them. Just select any color and they're good to go. You can also add new colors. Let's name them red. And our books are ready as well. Now let's add a color to these frames. So I want two different colors in these frames. So I want that the border will be black and the inner material or the inner actual image should be white. So now, as I said earlier, if you go into this material tab, you can add multiple slots to one object. So let's click on plus new here or here to add a material. So let's click plus and you will see that this shows slot 1. So slot 1 has material 002. So let's click on this drop down and select the white material from it. So now slot 1 has white material. Now what we'll do is click on this plus button right here and add another material slot to it. Now let's click on this drop down and select a black color if we have one. So we don't have one, so click on this plus new button and let's name this color black. And now let's change the base color to a darker color. Let's say this one. So now you'll see, although we have two different color slots in it, but appears to be purely white. So what we'll do is press tab to go into edit mode and press A to select everything. Now that everything is selected, you need to assign a color slot to it. Now if it's not looking very clear that what is selected and what is not, so you can just go on this bar and you can select the material preview mode, but you'll notice that it's not visible here. So you just scroll on this one, hover over this bar and scroll, and you will get this material preview mode and just select this second one. So now you will see, you can see better things selected. So select everything. So now when every face is selected and this black color is selected, click assign, and now the black color will be assigned to all of the faces. Press tab to go out the edit mode, and if you notice here, you will see that this frame is completely black now. Now let's go back into the edit mode again, and while in face select mode, select this face only. So while this face is selected, select this white color from here and click on assign. And now you will see that our frame is now black and white and has two colors. So press tab to go out of the object mode now. So for this one, let's do the opposite. Let's first add a white color, and now the frame will be all white. Let's click plus to add a new color, drop down and click black to select the black frame, and go into edit mode, select this face and click on assign to assign the black color to that face only. Press tab to go out of the edit mode, and you will see that this face and this image is now opposite of this one. So this is handy if you want to add different materials to different objects. So let's see a last example of this and then we will render the scene. Select this TV, click on drop down and add the black material to it. So you'll notice it's a bit dark and we cannot see it very properly. So if you want to keep the base material same but duplicate it, you can click on this copy button and add a new material while keeping everything in here same. So you will see similar to objects, it named it black.001. So if we go into the drop down, you will see we have the original black as well, and we now have a black 001. So now you can make changes to this one and the original black color will not be affected. So let's make it a little lighter, and then let's add a screen which is reflective to this one. So let's press tab to go into edit mode and select this face. Now you'll see that we don't have too much geometry right here, so I'll press I to inset and inset a small face here. Now this inner face is already selected, so what I'll do is click on this plus to add a new material slot, click on new to add a new material, click on the name and let's say reflective, and click outside to name it, and then click on assign to assign the material. Now you will see we have two different material slots in the TV as well. Now what I'll do is click on this base color and make it completely black, but also reduce this roughness totally to 0. Now if we go back to object mode, you will notice that this black is now shiny. It's not very visible right now, but when you reduce the roughness completely to 0, the material becomes very reflective or shiny. As you can see from some angles that it is reflecting some light, meanwhile this color is not reflecting any. So that was it for the colors of this scene. Now let's set up our camera. So let's go back into the layout mode, and now let's turn on the visibility of the camera again. Let's scroll out to zoom out, and then let's select the camera. Now what you can do is press 0 to go into the camera view mode, and then press G while the camera is highlighted to move the camera with your mouse. So you can also press X, Y and Z to lock it in these axes. So let's move it. But for the orthographic camera or the orthographic modes, we actually have to change some settings in the camera. So in this panel, now there's a new option for the camera data. So click on this button, and for the lens, we will change it from perspective to orthographic. So now you'll see our camera also sees it orthographically. Next, we are going to change this orthographic scale to zoom in or out. So let's zoom in a little, and you'll notice that it's a bit up, so press G and Z to move it a little down, and press left click to confirm it. Next, if we want to change the actual shape of the render, we have to go into the second tab, which is the output properties, and there we will find the format of our render. So this is currently to 1920 by 1080. So let's click on the first one and click 1080 by 1080. So this is the social media size which you can use on any square image sharing platform. So now you'll notice that the frame got bigger and the image is now more far from the camera. So let's go back into the camera data properties again, and let's reduce the scale till it is in the scene, till it looks better. So I think that looks better. Now to get out of the camera view mode, you can press 0 again, or press 0 to go into the camera view and rotate the gizmo to move out of it. Now before we do the actual render, I'll just show you one modifier. So modifiers in Blender are some advanced operations which help with some tasks. So let's say we want to add some thickness to this wall. So one way of doing it is tab into edit mode, select the face and press E to extrude, and now we have some thickness on the wall. But we are not going to do that. So let's press undo and let's tab out of the edit mode. So select this walls and let's go into this panel. So this is the modifiers tab. So let's click on plus add modifier, go to the generate tab and click on this solidify modifier. This is one of the many modifiers that we use in regular renders, but for this one, to keep it simple, I'll just use only this one. So click on this solidify and you will notice that there is some thickness added to the wall right now. So you can increase the thickness from here. So let's say we want it to 0.5. 0.2 or let's say 0.15, and you will notice that it is coming towards the inwards, but we want to move it to the other direction. So for this offset, instead of -1, let's make it +1, so it goes in the other direction. So now it's going in the opposite direction, but you will also notice that there is a difference in thickness. It is more thick from here and less thick from here, which is more visible in the orthographic view modes. So to fix this, just click on this even thickness and it will fix the thickness from here. So without it, it's not evenly distributed, but with the even thickness on, it's evenly distributed. So next you can increase or decrease the width. So let's make it 0.1 only, and let's press 0 to go into the camera view mode again. Now I think it looks good to render as the first render scene. So let's click on render, but before that let's save this file. So click file and save, or just press Ctrl S to save. Now go to the render tab and click on render image. And now we have our first render, but you'll notice that this is with a transparent background and it does not have a background. So if you save it right now, it will either save with a black background or with a transparent background. So let's add a background to it and then save it. Let's go into a viewport, press Shift A and mesh and plane to add a plane. Now you'll notice that it is selected. So let's tab into edit mode and press S and 5 to scale it 5 times, and press left click to confirm the operation. Now we have resized it to 5 times. Next, let's tab out of the edit mode, press R, X and 90 degree to rotate it 90 degree on the X axis. Next, let's press R, Z 45 degrees to rotate it 45 degrees on the Z axis. Now we haven't touched this one option yet, so let's go on to it and click on local. Now for easier demonstration, I'll move into the local view by pressing the /, and you will notice that with the local option, this gizmo is now oriented to this plane, but with the global option, it was oriented to the global axis. So this red one is aligned with the global x axis, this one is with the global y axis, and this with the global z axis. But if we change it to local, it stays local to this plane. So while in the local mode, I'll click on this. Remember, if you don't have it, you can turn it off and on from here. So you press on this and move it a little backwards. Now press / to go out of the local view again and press 0 to watch it from the camera. So now you'll see we have a white background in our camera scene. So I'll just move it a little downwards. So now you'll notice that there's no actual color to it because there's no material into it. So while the plane is selected, go into the materials tab and click on the drop down and select any color that you want. So I'll just select the white and go into the base color and move this slider up to make it pure white. So now we have a render background as well. So click on render and render image to render your scene. Now to increase or improve the quality, what we can do is go into the render properties and increase the sampling. So the more the samples, the better your render quality is. So you can increase it to 128. This affects the render, the actual render, and this affects the one you see in the viewport, the quality you see in the viewport. So click on render and render image to render your scene. Now you'll notice that we haven't added any light. This is just the default light. So the lighting in this scene is not very well, but for your first render, this is actually really good. So to actually save this image, this is just the render. If you close it, it won't be saved anywhere. But to actually save the image, click on image and then click on save as, and then you can save it to anywhere you want on your computer. So I'm in my desktop and I will rename it 3D tutorial 1.png, and you can select any file type or image type from here. I'll just keep it to PNG, and you can keep it RGB or RGBA. So the BW will give you black and white color, RGB will give you RGB colors without any transparency, and RGBA, where A means alpha, will give you transparency in the image as well. So let's select RGB or RGBA and click on save as image. Now you can actually view your image. So our saved image looks something like this. So let's improve it a little more in the cycles engine, and let's change our render engine to a more realistic one, which is from EV to cycles. Make sure you turn on this GPU compute and not this CPU. So the first thing you're going to do is to change this viewport samples, max samples, to 32 or even 16, because this is the samples in the viewport area. So actually what you're seeing in the viewport. Next, we can also reduce the max samples in the render area. So this is what happens in the viewport and this is in the render. So I'll just make it 128. You can turn it to 64 as well. Now you'll see that this has a very harsh lighting. So in cycles, it's actually better to not use an HDRI, or to use an HDRI to a less extent and add lights to make your scene better. So let's just do that. So first let's zoom out, click on this light and let's turn it off. Now you'll see it is off, but if you render it, it will still have effect in the render, because this turns it off only from the viewport and not from the render. To turn it off from the render itself, you have to turn this icon off, which is the disable or enable in renders. So I'll turn this off as well. Now if your PC gets slow right here, you can reduce the max samples of the viewport to 16 also. Next, let's go into our world tab and let's reduce the effect of the HDRI. So let's make it 0.4 or 0.5, and now let's start adding lights to our scene. So press Shift A and in the light options click on area to add an area light. Let's delete and do it again. So press Shift A, light and area light, and it will be added to the origin. Now using the move tool, move it up and you will see that we have some lighting in our scene already. So now we also have a new option here, which is the data properties of the light. So from here you can increase or decrease the power of the light. So for this scene, I'll just experiment and see which works best. So let's make it 25, and let's also increase the size to 2 meters, so it's equal to the size of the room itself. And now in cycles you can already see that we have some reflections in the TV, and the very dark shadows from the EV are gone, and we have some better lighting going on in the corners as well. So I'll just move it a little bit down and let's try to render the scene now. So let's save the file, go to render tab and click on render image. Now this will take a longer time than EV because it's actually a realistic engine. So you can see that there is difference in the quality of the render as well. So you can click on image, then click on save as, and then let's save it as tutorial 2. So instead of renaming your files, you can just click on this plus and then it will add a 2 to the number where there was 1 first. So click on save as image. Now you can keep adding lights to your scene and tweaking things. You can also play around with different modifiers and materials to make it look even better. But that is for future tutorials. This was just to give you an overview of Blender for complete beginners. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you make this room, tag me on Instagram at @VectorRecite and I'd love to see your renders. So that was it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.